Mm-mm-mm. Hello there. I'm the spirit of procrastination past, and I am here today to talk about that book you keep on saying you're gonna read, but you never do. And you know what? If that's the case, I'm right there with you. Do you have that thing where the more you want to read a book, the more you procrastinate it because either A, you enjoy the feeling of looking forward to something, or B, are too afraid you're not gonna like it? No? Just me? Weird. A little later in this video, I'll be talking spoilers, but for those of you who haven't yet read the book, I will begin by my spoiler-free thoughts. This is an adult sci-fi novel by James S.A. Corey, which is a pen name for our guys Abraham and Frank here. It tells the story of two dudes on two different cosmic bodies who are both trying to deal with the realities of a gigantic interplanetary war. This is a terrible summary, but let's be honest, you're not here for this. You came here because you saw the word tentacles in my thumbnail and you were wondering exactly how weird this is gonna be. Don't pretend like it's not true. It's good. I liked it. You should read it. It's an innately political book, yet it doesn't read as such. We're focusing on the action, and the politics are mostly implied. They're heavily there, but they're not overwhelming in any way. Like the engine of a car that you know is there and you know is powering the car, but you don't have to stare at it the whole time. Which is great for people who are in the mood to read deep, multi-layered books, yet aren't in the mood for excessive navel gazing. The world building is phenomenal. Nowadays, we're so oversaturated with grand space production on unimaginable scales that we often tend to forget how amazing our own solar system is. We tend to consider it small potatoes when it comes to sci-fi. Now, this book brings the focus back to it without making it seem too unimaginable, honestly, yet quite spectacular is the word. And I bet, unless you're an astrophysicist, you are going to learn quite a lot about our solar system. Additionally, the way that the society in this book is built is heavily influenced by gravity, its laws, or lack thereof, as well as the rest of the environmental factors that are at play. And honestly, no details are spared, almost without any exposition, which, considering, is damn right impressive, honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a big book. It's on the heavy side of 500 pages, but reading it won't feel like a chore. If nothing else, trust me on this. Reading it will not feel like a chore. Or it will. I don't know you or what you consider chores, honestly. But it sure didn't feel like that to me. And I was, to put it mildly, very hesitant to start this book. I mean, I owned it for like a year before I even considered opening it. And then, once I started, I didn't want to put it down. And when I inevitably would, because let's be honest, I have a job and some sort of life, if you can believe that. But every time I would put it down, I will inevitably be thinking about it the whole time and theorizing what would happen next. It was quite a lovely experience. And I guess it was because there was almost no downtime. We were constantly doing things. And when there was some downtime here and there, it was underlined by this dread, this feeling of pressure, like a storm building, which is, I gotta be honest, one of my favorite feelings about a book. Which brings me to the plot. Think about a space cop action mystery with a tiny smidgen of romance, and then throw in a gigantic interplanetary war amongst humanity. And you will still have not a full idea of the magnitude of the stakes we're talking about here, which genuinely followed a geometric progression throughout the entire book, all the way to the tentacle part. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler because there's technically no tentacles in this book. But I bet if you like them, you'd like this. That was honestly an awesome reveal, and it made me very excited about the following books in this series. I did not expect it. I thought it was gonna stick to the more standard stuff, and when this came out, I was very, very surprised. Pleasantly at that. Sadly, most modern sci-fi books tend to shy away from tentacles. Why is that? So you gotta admire the tentacle representation in this book, even if by proxy. And the authors have done their research. I can tell because I was very interested in space and everything related to it ever since I learned how to read and learned how to annoy every single grown-up around me with useless factoids about stars and black holes, which was around the time I still used the word grown-up. These two authors managed to impress me. Now, I don't consider myself any sort of authority, but, well, I'm biased. It's me. I'm impressed. Take it as you will. Honestly, this amount of vision, fueled by research and very accessible writing style, made reading this book feel, honestly, safe. You know, when you trust the author to have a good idea, knowledge of what he's talking about, and a solid plan on how to get you there, so you can just sit back, enjoy the ride, and look forward to the sights promised by the destination. You know the feeling? Like there's certain authors I trust like that. Last, I will address characters. Pretty much the most important part of a book, according to my ignorant expert opinion. Let's start with the main characters. Confused, stupid at times, insecure, disturbed, unstable. In summary, I love them. They frustrated me quite often, but they felt like real people and I felt for them. The types of inner conflict and obsession that they went through during this book made them strangely relatable in this extremely unrelatable scenario. The side characters were also very strong, but in a completely different way. Most of them felt like an amalgamation of unrelated stereotypes, which honestly made them a great supporting cast. I loved all of them, and I feared greatly for all of their lives throughout this book, which honestly helped keeping the stakes high. Read it. So all of you who haven't yet read the book, drop off here, go read it, and come back to watch me lose my shit. I'll see you then. Now, for the chosen few of us who have read this book, this is gonna be a gigantic mess, I'm not gonna lie. First of all, am I the only one who was so annoyed by Holden, and for so many reasons? First of all of them is the worst of mortal sins, stupidity. Like, honestly, I'm having a hard time believing that anybody can be this slow to learn. So, you get blasted by an unknown ship and you broadcast partial, so to speak, information to the rest of the universe. And shit hits the fan. Fine, you were upset, emotional, you didn't know what was gonna happen. I understand that. Not your fault. But then you do it again, and with the same result, if not worse, and then want to do it again, and would do it again if you weren't stopped. I mean, how slow are you? At this point, I gotta assume that you're either insane or mentally challenged and or evil. I mean, at one point, I started considering the possibility that he was behind this whole thing. I put on a trench coat and a checkered hat and started retracing his steps, trying to find out the clues, only to be left with no choice but to accept that he just dumb as a rock and baffled by how did he ever manage to become an exo on anything more complex than a unicycle. And even worse, after all of these events, he still didn't manage to come up to the thought by himself that he needs to be more careful with his actions. He literally needed Miller to spell it out for him. But if there's something that really pissed me off, and it always pisses me off in characters, that is the hypocrisy, which might have also been fueled by the lack of brain cells. To badly paraphrase one of the most famous quotes from A Few Good Men, he sleeps under the blanket of safety that Miller provided, and then question the manner in which he provided it. I mean, you call him all kinds of names because he shot a Bond supervillain defenseless, even though it's clear to everyone with 2 brain cells that this was gonna get away with it. And then you have the audacity to raise your voice about it when you're the sole trigger for this entire mess. Not once, but twice. You're the reason or the catalyst for this entire world to be where it is right now. I mean, sure, it would probably have happened the same way for another reason if it wasn't for him, but it was him.
I think ultimately what pissed me off the most was the lack of shown remorse and the lack of a learning curve.
And twice at that. And if it wasn't for Miller, it would have been 3 times. And he would have made it worse. And what did he think is going to happen? He puts this implicating information out there when he's already aware of the conflict that is brewing between the belt and the inner planets. Of course, people will be upset and outraged, and they would want a retaliation. Even if the governments didn't want to already nuke each other into oblivion, they would have no choice, basically. How can anyone not see that? This is the point where I started considering him seriously to be the hidden villain of this story and started looking for clues, because that at least would excuse his baffling behavior. That's how flabbergasted I was, whatever that means. And the worst thing was that the authors actually took away from me the pleasure of ranting by addressing it in the pages of the book, which means that they got me all frustrated on purpose. Masterfully done. But here I am ranting anyway, so who's laughing now? Now let's move on to Miller. What an absolute weirdo. Super creepy, made me quite uncomfortable a few times, yet I couldn't help but root for him. And as opposite to Captain Righteousness over here, he actually had a functioning brain. He also had visions and talked to himself, but who doesn't, am I right? Also, I really liked the tiny twist of him turning out to be the loser of the precinct. It was obvious, yet I didn't see it. Well played, Corey. Well played. I also didn't expect him to survive this book, if I have to be honest. And technically, I don't know if he did, given the state that we left him in, but I would love to see more of him in whatever state that might be. And given the title of the second book, Caliban's War, I'm guessing we will in one way or another. For the plebs in the audience, Caliban is a half-human, half-beast from a Shakespearean play. So considering the second book will probably follow the struggles of the Eros alloy, as I like to call it. I guess there's a lot more to say, but I'm kind of tired of listening to my own voice, and I'm guessing at this point you as well, probably. So let's discuss more in the comments. I'd be happy to read your opinions on the book, my opinions, or my terrible hair. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you all 3/4 of a G.